The bar was
Get
loud
in,
that
now!
All
right, I'm going.
Too fast.
Hurry up.
Glasses
Door's open.
touched, and soldiers laughed after a long week of training. It was a place where people came to forget stress and feel important again. Near the back corner, under a dim yellow light, a woman sat alone. Her name was Maya. She did not look nervous. She did not look like she wanted attention either. She simply watched the room quietly, her hands wrapped around a glass of water. While others talked loudly, she listened. While others showed off, she stayed calm. Most people did not notice her, but one man did. Captain Ryan Cole, a Navy SEAL, stood near the bar with a group of friends. He was loud, confident, and already drunk. People around him laughed at everything he said. He liked being the center of attention. And when his eyes landed on Maya, sitting alone and silent, something about her bothered him. Maybe it was how calm she looked. Maybe it was how she did not look impressed. He walked over, drink in hand, smiling in a way that was not friendly. "You military?" he asked loudly. Maya looked up at him once. Her face showed no emotion. She did not answer. The captain laughed and looked back at his friends. "Come on," he said. "Everyone around here has a call sign. What's yours?" Still, Maya said nothing. Some people nearby started watching. The music felt quieter, even though it was still playing. The captain leaned closer, his smile fading. "What? You too good to answer," he said. "Or are you pretending?" Maya slowly looked away, as if the question did not matter. She took a small breath, calm and controlled. To her, this moment felt familiar. Too familiar. The captain mistook her silence for disrespect. His voice became sharper. "You sit in a military bar. You show respect." A few people shifted uncomfortably. The bartender watched closely, but said nothing yet. Maya finally spoke, her voice soft and steady. "I'm just here to relax." That answer only made things worse. The captain laughed again, louder this time. "Relax? Then relax somewhere else." Before anyone could react, he tilted his glass and threw the drink at her. Cold liquid splashed across her face and jacket. The laughter stopped instantly. The room froze. Maya did not move. Drops of liquid fell slowly from her hair onto the floor. Her hand stayed still on the table. For a moment, she looked completely frozen, as if time itself had stopped. But it was not fear in her eyes. It was memory. The sound of the bar faded in her mind. For a second, she heard something else, distant noise, shouting, the echo of a past she never talked about. A moment where moving too fast once meant someone did not make it home. She blinked, returning to the present. The captain waited for anger, for shouting, for a scene. It never came. Maya calmly reached for a napkin and wiped her face. Her movements were slow, controlled. The kind of control learned through pain and discipline. People around them began whispering. Something about her reaction felt wrong. Not weak, but heavy, like she was carrying something no one else could see. At the far end of the bar, an older man watched closely. A retired soldier who had seen enough years to recognize certain things. The way she sat, the way her eyes scanned the exits without thinking, the way she stayed calm under pressure. His expression changed. The captain shook his head, annoyed that she was not reacting. "See," he said to his friends, "not so tough after all." Maya stood up slowly. For a moment, the captain thought she was leaving. Instead, she faced him quietly. No anger, no fear, just silence. And somehow, that silence made the room feel smaller. The older man near the bar finally spoke, his voice low but clear. "Captain," he said, "you might want to stop." The captain turned, confused. "Why?" The old soldier looked back at Maya, then at him. "Because," he said quietly, "you don't know who you just disrespected." The music kept playing, but no one in the room was listening anymore. The music slowly returned, but the energy in the bar had changed. People were no longer laughing. Conversations became quiet whispers. Eyes moved between the captain and Maya, waiting to see what would happen next. Maya stood still for a moment, holding the napkin in her hand. The cold drink had already soaked into her jacket, but she did not seem bothered by it. Her face was calm, almost empty, as if she had learned long ago how to hide emotion. Captain Ryan Cole crossed his arms, annoyed. He expected anger. He expected shouting. Instead, he got silence, and it made him uncomfortable. "What?" he said loudly. "She going to report me now?" No one laughed this time. Maya gently placed the wet napkin on the table. She picked up her bag, moving slowly, carefully. Every action looked controlled, measured, like someone who never wasted energy. "I don't want trouble," she said quietly. Her voice was steady. "No shacking, no fear." The captain smirked. "Then maybe answer when someone talks to you." Maya did not reply. She turned slightly, ready to leave, but the older man at the bar stepped forward. His name was Harris, a retired Marine who had spent 30 years in service. He looked at Maya with growing recognition, not of her face, but of her behavior. He had seen that kind of calm before, in people who had survived things others could not imagine. "You served," Harris said gently. Maya paused but did not turn around. The captain laughed again. "Yeah, right. Everyone here suddenly served." Harris ignored him. His eyes stayed on Maya. "You don't sit like a civilian," he continued. "You watch doors. You listen more than you speak." For the first time, Maya's expression changed slightly. Not surprise, just tired acceptance. "I used to," she said. The words were simple, but they carried weight. The captain rolled his eyes. "Used to what?" "Play soldier." A few people nearby frowned. The mood was shifting against him now, but he was too proud to notice. Maya finally turned back toward them. The lights above reflected softly in her eyes. There was no anger there, only something older. "I'm not here for memories," she said. For a brief moment, the room felt heavy again. Harris noticed something else then, a small scar near her wrist, another near her collarbone, half hidden, not random injuries, the kind earned in dangerous places. His voice lowered. "What unit?" Maya hesitated. The question clearly meant something to her. Her fingers tightened slightly around her bag strap. A flash of sound passed through her mind again. Helicopters shouting, dust in the air. Faces she no longer saw. "I don't talk about it," she answered. The captain scoffed. Convenient. But now people were watching him differently. His confidence began to feel forced. The more Maya stayed calm, the smaller his behavior looked. The bartender finally stepped closer. "Captain, maybe that's enough for tonight." Ryan shook his head. "I'm just asking questions." "No," Harris said quietly. "You're not." Silence fell again. Maya took a slow breath. She looked around the room once, as if measuring the distance to the exit without thinking. Old habits. Training that never really left. "I came here because it was quiet," she said softly. "I was wrong." She started walking toward the door. But before she reached it, two younger soldiers near the entrance stepped aside quickly, almost instinctively giving her space. Something about her presence made people move without understanding why. Behind her, the captain muttered under his breath, trying to recover his pride. Still didn't answer the call sign. Maya stopped, only for a second. Her shoulders stiffened slightly, as if the words touched something deep, something painful. She did not turn around. Instead, she said quietly, "Some names are not meant for places like this." And then she continued walking. Harris watched her go, his expression serious now. He knew that tone. He had heard it from people who carried stories buried under silence. He turned to the captain. "You should let this go." Ryan frowned. "Why does everyone suddenly care?" Harris exhaled slowly. "Because," he said, "people who react like that usually save someone when nobody else could." The captain laughed it off, but doubt had already entered his mind. Outside, the door closed behind Maya. And inside the bar, the feeling remained that something important had just happened, and no one fully understood it yet. The door closed behind Maya, and the cold night air hit her face. The noise from the bar faded quickly. Outside, the street was quiet, lit only by soft streetlights and passing cars. She stopped for a moment and closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. Inside the bar, everything had felt too familiar. The loud voices, the challenge, the feeling of being tested for no reason. She had spent years learning how to walk away from moments like that. Still, her hands were slightly tense. Not from fear, from memory. She started walking toward the parking lot, her steps calm and steady. But her mind was not fully in the present. Pieces of the past pushed forward, flashes she never invited. Dust in the air, a radio calling for help, someone shouting her name. She opened her eyes again and forced herself back to now. Inside the bar, Captain Ryan Cole tried to laugh the moment off. He ordered another drink, speaking louder than before, trying to bring the mood back. But the energy had changed. People were not laughing with him anymore. They were watching him. Harris sat quietly, thinking. He had seen many soldiers over the years. Some loud, some proud, and some very quiet. The quiet ones were usually the ones who had seen the worst. The captain noticed the silence around him. "What?" he said defensively. She acted like she was special. Harris shook his head slowly. "No," he replied. She acted like someone who's tired. The words stayed in the air. Before the captain could respond, the front door opened again. Two military police officers stepped inside. Their presence immediately drew attention. The bartender pointed toward the captain. Someone had called. Ryan frowned. "You got to be kidding me." One of the officers spoke calmly. "Sir, we received a report about a disturbance." The captain straightened, using his rank like armor. "It's handled." But the officer's eyes moved across the room. "We still need statements." Harris watched carefully. He noticed something the others didn't. One of the officers looked toward the door Maya had exited through, as if expecting someone to still be there. Outside, Maya reached her car, but didn't open the door yet. She stood quietly, looking at her reflection in the window. Drops from the drink had dried on her jacket. For a moment, she looked tired. Not physically, but deeply tired. She whispered to herself, almost without sound, "Not again." Her phone vibrated suddenly in her pocket. She looked at the screen, but didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar, but something about it made her hesitate. Back inside, the officers continued asking questions. The captain's confidence slowly faded as witnesses described what happened. Not aggressively, just honestly. "He threw the drink," someone said. "He kept pushing her," another added. Ryan's jaw tightened. This was not how the night was supposed to go. Then one of the younger officers spoke quietly to his partner. "Did you get her name?" The bartender nodded. "Maya." The officer froze for half a second. Harris noticed immediately. "You know her?" he asked. The officer hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I've heard the name." That was all he said, but it was enough to change the feeling in the room again. Outside, Maya finally opened her car door. She sat down, but did not start the engine. Her phone vibrated again. The same number. This time, she answered. She listened without speaking. Her expression slowly changed. Not fear, not surprise. Something heavier. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. There was a pause. She closed her eyes for a moment. "Understand," she said, then ended the call. Inside the bar, the captain rubbed his face, frustrated. "This is ridiculous." Harris leaned back in his chair. "Sometimes," he said calmly, "the past catches up when you least expect it." At the same moment, outside in the parking lot, Maya looked toward the bar one last time. Whatever she had tried to leave behind was no longer finished with her. She started the engine, and for the first time that night, her calm expression showed something else. Concern, because the call she just received meant one thing. The past she survived was coming back. The engine of Maya's car stayed running, but she did not drive away. Her hands rested on the steering wheel as she stared ahead into the dark parking lot. The phone call still echoed in her mind. A name had been mentioned, a place she thought she would never hear about again. For years, she had worked hard to live quietly. No uniforms, no missions, no orders, just peace. But peace never lasted forever. Inside the bar, the military police continued asking questions. The loud energy from earlier was gone. Now the room felt tense and uncomfortable. Captain Ryan Cole stood with crossed arms, clearly irritated. He answered shortly, trying to sound in control. "It was just a misunderstanding," he said. "She overreacted." No one agreed. The bartender shook his head slightly, but said nothing. Harris watched silently from his seat, his expression serious. He had seen moments like this before, moments where pride made people blind. One of the officers finished writing notes and looked around the room again. "Where is she now?" he asked. "She left," the bartender replied. The officer nodded slowly, as if expecting that answer. Ryan sighed loudly. "Good, then we're done here." But the officer did not move. Instead, he asked quietly, "You said her name was Maya?" The bartender confirmed it. The officer exchanged a look with his partner. Something unspoken passed between them. Harris noticed again. His curiosity grew. "You really know her?" he asked. The officer hesitated before answering. "Not personally, but some names come up during training. Stories. Examples." The captain frowned. "Examples of what?" The officer looked at him carefully. "Leadership under pressure." The words landed heavily. Ryan looked confused, almost offended. "You're saying she's some kind of hero?" The officer did not answer directly. "I'm saying some people don't need to prove who they are." Silence followed. Outside, Maya finally turned off the engine. She stepped out of the car again, the cool night air helping her think. She hated unfinished situations. Walking away had felt right earlier, but now something inside her told her the night wasn't over. She looked toward the bar entrance. For a moment, she considered leaving. Instead, she walked back. Inside, conversation stopped when the door opened again. Several heads turned at once. Maya entered quietly, her presence calm but impossible to ignore now. The captain stiffened when he saw her. The officers straightened slightly, almost instinctively. Maya walked toward the counter, ignoring the stares. She spoke calmly to the bartender. "I forgot something." Her voice was steady, but the room felt different now. People were no longer judging her. They were trying to understand her. The captain cleared his throat. His confidence from earlier had faded, replaced by uncertainty. "You came back," he said. Maya looked at him briefly. "I wasn't finished." The words were not aggressive, but they carried weight. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. For the first time that night, he seemed unsure what to say. Harris stood up slowly, watching both of them. He sensed something important about to happen. The captain finally spoke again, quieter this time. "Why didn't you say who you were?" Maya met his eyes. "Because it shouldn't matter," she replied. The answer hit harder than anger would have. The officer beside them spoke respectfully. "Ma'am, do you want to file a report?" Maya shook her head. "No." Ryan looked surprised. "You're just letting it go?" She nodded slightly. "Some lessons don't need punishment." The room stayed silent. Her words were not meant to embarrass him, but somehow they did. Ryan looked down at his glass, realizing how small his actions now seemed. For the first time, he spoke without arrogance. "Then why come back?" Maya picked up her keys from the counter. She paused before answering. "Because respect," she said calmly, "is not something you demand. It's something you show." No one spoke. The truth in her words settled over the room like weight. As she turned to leave again, Ryan's voice stopped her. This time, it was almost hesitant. "What was your call sign?" Maya stopped walking. The question hung in the air, heavier now than before. Slowly, she turned her head slightly, her expression unreadable. And for the first time that night, it felt like the real story was about to begin. The question stayed in the air. "What was your call sign?" Captain Ryan Cole's voice was no longer loud or demanding. It sounded different now, quieter, almost unsure. The same man who had mocked her earlier now stood waiting for an answer he was no longer sure he deserved. Maya did not turn around immediately. Her hand tightened slightly around her keys. For a moment, it seemed like she might ignore the question and walk out. That would have been easier, safer. Some names carried weight. Some names carried pain. The bar was completely silent. Even the music felt distant. Everyone watched her, sensing that this moment mattered more than the argument that started it. Slowly, Maya turned back. Her expression was calm, but her eyes looked far away, as if she was seeing another place entirely. "I stopped using it," she said softly. Ryan frowned. "Why?" Maya hesitated, not because she did not know the answer, but because saying it out loud meant remembering. Harris stepped closer, not to interrupt, but to listen. Maya spoke again. "Call signs are given for a reason, usually after something happens." Her voice stayed steady, but the room felt heavier with every word. Years ago, during a mission overseas, her unit had been sent to evacuate civilians from a dangerous area. The situation changed fast. Communication failed. Orders became unclear. Panic spread, and then everything went wrong. She remembered smoke filling the air, the sound of gunfire too close, teammates shouting through broken radios, people freezing because they didn't know what to do next. She had not frozen. While others waited for orders, Maya moved. She led civilians out through a damaged route no one else wanted to risk. She went back more than once, pulling people out when time was running out. Not everyone survived, but many did because she refused to stop. They gave me the name after that, she said quietly. No one spoke. Even Ryan listened without moving. What was it? He asked again, softer now. Maya looked down for a moment before answering. They called me Anchor. The word surprised some people in the room. It did not sound aggressive or heroic. It sounded steady. Harris nodded slowly. He understood immediately. Because you kept everyone steady, he said. Maya gave a small nod. Because when things went bad, I didn't move. Her voice lowered slightly. Even when I wanted to. The meaning behind those words was clear. Staying strong had come with a cost. Ryan swallowed, the reality finally settling in. The woman he had mocked was someone who had carried responsibility he could barely imagine. What happened after, he asked. Maya's eyes hardened just a little. The mission ended, she said simply, and so did my career. There was more to the story. Everyone could feel it. Blame, politics, decisions made by people far away from danger. But she did not explain further. She didn't need to. Silence filled the space again. Ryan looked down at the floor, shame slowly replacing his earlier confidence. For the first time that night, he truly understood what Harris meant. Some people did not need to prove themselves. Maya picked up her bag again. That name belongs to another life, she said calmly. I'm just Maya now. She turned toward the door once more. This time, no one stopped her. As she walked past the captain, he spoke quietly, barely above a whisper. I misjudged you. Maya paused, but did not look back. It happens, she replied. More than you think. Her tone was not angry, just honest. She stepped outside into the night again, the cool air wrapping around her like silence. Inside the bar, people slowly began to move again, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Ryan remained standing, replaying the night in his mind. The drink, the laughter, the moment she froze, not from fear, but from memories he could never see. Harris placed a hand on his shoulder. Rank doesn't make a leader, he said quietly. Character does. Ryan nodded slowly, watching the door Maya had just walked through. For the first time in a long time, he felt small. And outside, as Maya walked toward her car again, her phone vibrated once more in her pocket. The past was still calling. And this time, she knew she could not ignore it. The night air felt colder now. Maya walked slowly across the parking lot, her footsteps quiet against the pavement. The bar lights glowed behind her, fading with every step. She wanted the night to end. She wanted silence again. But her phone vibrated once more in her pocket. She stopped beside her car and looked at the screen. The same number. The same call she had already answered once tonight. The message was clear. Something from her past needed her again. She closed her eyes for a moment. For years, she had avoided going back. She told herself that part of her life was finished. But deep down, she knew some responsibilities never truly disappeared. Behind her, the bar door opened. Maya heard footsteps approaching, but did not turn immediately. She already knew who it was. Captain Ryan Cole stopped a few steps away. This time, there was no arrogance in his posture. His shoulders were tense, his hands unsure of where to rest. The loud confidence from earlier was gone. Maya, he said quietly. She turned slowly to face him. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The sounds of distant traffic filled the silence. Ryan took a breath. I needed to say this before you left. Maya waited. I was wrong, he said. The words came slowly, like they were difficult to say. I judged you without knowing anything about you. I thought rank meant respect. I forgot it has to be earned. His voice was honest now. No audience. No laughter. Just truth. Maya studied his face carefully. She had seen apologies before. Some real. Some only spoken to avoid consequences. This one felt different. You don't owe me anything, she replied calmly. I know, Ryan said. That's why I'm saying it anyway. The wind moved lightly between them. For the first time that night, there was no tension, only understanding. Inside the bar, a few people watched through the windows. Harris stood near the counter, arms crossed, observing quietly. He knew moments like this mattered more than arguments. Ryan continued, his voice lower now. I've led teams for years. I always thought being strong meant being loud, being in control. He shook his head slightly. Tonight showed me something else. Maya listened but said nothing. He looked down for a moment before speaking again. When you didn't react, that bothered me. I thought you were weak. Maya's expression softened slightly. Sometimes, she said, walking away takes more strength than fighting back. Ryan nodded slowly, understanding now. I embarrassed you, he said, in front of everyone. Maya shook her head gently. You embarrassed yourself. The words were not cruel, just honest. And somehow, that honesty made the apology complete. Ryan let out a small breath, almost a quiet laugh at himself. Yeah, I did. For a moment, they both stood in silence again, the tension of the night finally fading. Then Ryan asked, more carefully this time, why didn't you tell anyone who you were? It would have stopped everything. Maya looked toward the dark road ahead. Because respect that comes from fear or reputation doesn't last, she said. People should choose it on their own. The answer stayed with him. Inside the bar, Harris smiled slightly. He could see the change already happening, not just in Ryan, but in everyone who had witnessed the night. Ryan straightened slightly. I'll remember that. Maya nodded once. That's enough. She opened her car door, ready to leave for real this time. But before she sat down, Ryan spoke again. If it's about going back, be careful. Maya paused. She realized he understood more than she expected. I always am, she said quietly. She got into the car and closed the door. The engine started, headlights cutting through the darkness. Ryan stepped back, watching as she pulled away from the parking lot. Inside the bar, conversations slowly returned, but the mood remained thoughtful. The night had changed something in everyone who saw it. Harris walked past Ryan as he re-entered. Good leaders learn, he said calmly. Ryan nodded. I had to be reminded. Outside, Maya drove through the quiet streets, her phone resting beside her. The call she received earlier replayed in her mind. Someone from her old unit needed help. And this time, walking away was not an option. As the city lights passed by her window, her calm expression returned. The same calm that once earned her the name Anchor. Because some roles never truly end. And soon, she would have to face the past one last time. The city was quiet as Maya drove through the empty streets. Street lights passed one by one, their light moving across her face like slow memories. The night had been longer than she expected. What started as a simple stop at a bar had turned into something else, something that reminded her of who she used to be. Her phone rested on the seat beside her. The call still weighed on her mind. Someone from her old unit had reached out. A situation overseas. A team struggling with decisions that reminded her too much of the past. They did not ask her to return officially. They only asked for advice. But Maya understood what it really meant. They needed someone steady again. Someone who would not freeze when things went wrong. She stopped at a red light and looked at her reflection in the windshield. For years, she had tried to live without that responsibility. She told herself she was done carrying other people's lives on her shoulders. Yet deep inside, she knew something had never changed. Inside the bar, hours earlier, Captain Ryan Cole sat quietly at the counter. The crowd had thinned, and the noise was gone. He replayed the night again and again in his mind. The moment he threw the drink, the silence that followed, and the calm way Maya handled everything. Harris sat beside him, finishing his last drink. You're thinking too much, Harris said calmly. Ryan nodded. I keep asking myself how someone stays that calm. Harris smiled slightly. Because they've already survived worse. Ryan stared at his glass. She didn't need to prove anything. No, Harris said. That's why people listened when she spoke. The lesson felt simple, but it stayed heavy in Ryan's chest. Leadership was not about being the loudest person in the room. Sometimes it was about knowing when to step back. Outside, Maya finally reached home. She parked the car, but stayed inside for a moment, listening to the quiet. No music, no voices, just silence. The kind of silence she had learned to appreciate. Her phone lit up again. A message this time. We could really use you. Just for guidance. She read it twice. Memories returned. Teammates laughing before missions. Long nights planning routes. The feeling of responsibility when others looked to her for answers. The name Anchor echoed in her mind. She had tried to leave that name behind, but maybe it had never left her. Maya stepped out of the car and looked up at the night sky. The world felt bigger out here, far away from the noise of the bar and the judgments of strangers. She realized something then. The night at the bar was not about humiliation or anger. It was a reminder that strength did not need attention. That respect came quietly, through actions people remembered long after words faded. Back at the bar, Ryan stood to leave. Before walking out, he looked around the empty room. Earlier, he had walked in feeling important. Now he walked out understanding something new. Respect could not be demanded. It had to be earned. And sometimes, the strongest people were the ones no one noticed at first. At home, Maya finally replied to the message. "I'll help, but only this once." She put the phone away and closed the door behind her. The world would probably never know her story. Her name would not appear in headlines. Most people would never understand what she had carried or what she had saved. And she was fine with that, because real strength did not need applause. The narrator's voice closed the story quietly. Some heroes do not raise their voices. They do not ask for recognition. They simply stand firm when others cannot. And when the moment comes, they hold everything steady, just like an anchor. The night ended in silence. But the lesson it left behind would last much longer.